Hey, welcome back. We're going to talk a little bit more about Hong Xiuquan and about the Taiping Rebellion. So the last 2 days we've talked about the question, why would people join this guy? He was kind of crazy. He was saying he was God's special son. He was Jesus's brother, and he was going to save China. Why would people believe this guy? Why would they follow him? In the early days, he had dozens of supporters or followers, probably the way we should call them. He had thousands it built up to. You'll see by the time he becomes a major source of conflict in the government, he has over 1 million followers. Um, why would 1 million people believe this guy and follow him? That's what we're going to talk about a little bit more today. Okay, so looking at this, remember one of his main focuses was, hey, we are going to rid China of the devils. We're going to kick the devils out of China. Now think about that. Who would that be? Who was in China? All right, what interaction were they having with foreigners? There's a word for foreigners. They call them foreign devils, not just barbarians. Who were those people? Now, the other thing we got to consider is, what was it like to be a peasant? It's never nice to be a peasant in the history of the earth. But in the end of the Qing dynasty, it was a very difficult time to be a peasant because the population had grown so much that they were running out of land. And if you're a farmer who only gets so much land, it becomes harder and harder to feed your family and to be at least comfortable if you don't have enough land to go off of. So think, who were the foreigners that Hong Xiuquan would be talking about getting rid of? Now, given all the talk that we've had about the Opium War and everything, we're going to say, the British, the Westerners, the Europeans, the Americans. Sure, I guess, but who was the big foreign threat in their eyes? The Qing. Because remember, the Qing were actually the Manchu people from up by Mongolia who had come across the border and had taken over China and had been in charge for hundreds of years now. So who are really the devils who have invaded and conquered China? It's the Qing. And the Qing did really well as far as governments go. There's a person you'll probably hear again in the future, not in this class, but in others, named Voltaire. Voltaire was a French philosopher and historian and political scientist, one of the best in the history of the world. And he looked at the Qing dynasty and he said, this is the most enlightened state the government has ever seen, or the world has ever seen. Excuse me. Did I make that confusing? The most enlightened government the world has ever seen. That's what he called the Qing. Now, this was before Opium Wars, before Taiping and all that stuff. They did a really good job running their country. That said, it's never nice to be a peasant, but near the end of the Qing dynasty, which is the time period that we're approaching right now, the mid-1800s, late 1800s, it was really bad to be a peasant. You saw that with people eating tree bark and digging up grass roots and stuff like that to try to stay alive. Now, what was appealing about Hong Xiuquan? We know they didn't like the Qing. What was appealing about him? He wasn't Qing, so he wasn't one of those invaders, right? He wasn't one of those people who maintained their wealth and prosperity on the backs of the peasants. He wasn't a foreign devil either. Things were bad enough at this point that there were actually loyal Chinese, who were saying, maybe it would be better if the British beat us and we could become part of the British Empire. That might make for a better life than being stuck under the Qing. And he was also okay with making some major changes to Chinese civilization that would make the peasants better off. Things like getting rid of the exam system, things like getting rid of government official positions where you get to take a chunk of everybody's taxes and that's how your family becomes rich. He was okay with talking about changes there. What did he teach? What were some of his ideas? I'm in the way a little bit, so I'm going to move. One thing he taught them, which was from some of the Christian pamphlets and brochures in the Bible, is this idea, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. What does it mean to be meek? Let's go over to dictionary.com and take a look. So meek means humbly patient, docile, as under provocation from others, overly submissive, compliant, tame, spiritless, gentle, kind. So this kind of describes the peasants who are being kicked around by the Qing. And what does he say about this? It's not just that you be a peasant, but you shall inherit the earth. So if you're a poor peasant dude who's used to being kicked around by the rich, this sounds pretty good, right? You get the